Once one of the most beloved cheeses in the world, cheddar is now a commodity food, the closest to plain vanilla that you can get in the cheese world. And you know, things are bad when even cheese experts say this.
Cheddar is this boring plasticky cheese. They're very acid, they're very crumbly, they're quite sharp, they can have quite flat flavors, they often come in blocks.
But what if we could change that? Today, there are only a handful of producers who are not making cheddar in a factory setting. To survive, they've had to rethink the rules of what cheddar is and what it can be, even if that means letting a blue vein run through their cheese.
Oh, now look at that beauty.
So what is cheddar today and how much it is still linked to its birthplace and traditional practices like binding it in cloth? To find this out, we're going to visit Holden Farm Dairy in West Wales to take a closer look at one of the most artisanal farmhouse cheddars in the UK, Hafod Cheddar.
Traditionally, all of Wales was subsistence farms, small farms, mixed farming, growing cereals, growing vegetables, and with some animals as well. This is the black oats, the traditional Cerdí is the Welsh name. And so I like to think of our farm as a mixed dairy farm. It's a whole habitat in itself, so I like that idea of a tapestry of different fields doing different things, and it just means you've got different ecosystems. And so over there, so you've got west to the Irish Sea, east to the Cumbrian mountains, which is a large area of wilderness really. And it means we get these different weather patterns. We get these, the westerly weather, a lot of rain and the winds, but we're also sometimes sheltered by the mountains. Her name is Holden. So she's very, very friendly. She tends to follow us around. She'll follow us around.
Yeah, she's gonna follow.
Yeah, that's Canterbury. So I have
Oh no,
a leader
now
cow.
she's following me.
She's saying, have you got anything nice? Can I eat your camera?
What's up?
Mostly Ayrshire's, but actually not pedigree Ayrshire's. She's very much a shorthorn. And we got a little bit of Normand. So really a sort of mix of cattle, and basically they have to be very adaptable because they have to do well on this landscape. They have to coexist with us on this hill, on mainly food from this hill. So they have to be thrifty, they have to be, able to cope with wet, windy Welsh hills, which is partly down to the breed. So their milk is good for cheese making because it's got a good protein and butterfat ratio, and the fat globules are smaller. We've got probably in the milking herd probably about 85, including the dry cows. There's probably about 75 here, and we'll bring them in tomorrow morning for milking. Oats and peas is my best friend. She's my co-worker.
A farm like this used to be the norm for cheddar. Here, once the rennet is in, it's the milk that sets the pace for the day.
Our make is not the same every day. Really depends on what the land is giving for the day and for the time period that those cows have been milking. So the milk changes a lot. In order to keep a consistent make with an inconsistent milk, we have to change with it.
Jennifer and her team don't make cheese every day. It takes 4 milkings, morning and evening, over 2 days, to gather enough milk for a batch of Hafod cheddar. Today, they're working with 2,300 liters.
So he's trying to make sure that all of the currents that were created while stirring and thoroughly the milk in are diminished so that we can get a nice, even, firm set. Because if it's moving, you get striations in the set, which then create an uneven whey distribution. You'll have drainage that's not what you want.
Yeah, you can see the current stopping now with the sunlight.
It's actually, Andrew, is that your favorite part of the day? It's mine too. Yeah. Right now, the proteins in our milk are down. So it's not a rich, well, it's fat rich, but it's not protein rich. So we will probably wait upwards of an hour. We want more acidity to develop in our vat so that then later, once we get rid of all of the whey and we just have the curds, those curds have enough acidity to later drive out more moisture, just to like squeeze it out. Because a wet cheese is usually not a nice cheese. Like it's wet, it becomes funky. So now he'll check for the flocculation. So that will tell us how quickly the rennet is working within the curd.
Andrew and Jennifer now check the curd to see if it has split from the way they want.
Because our vat is really big, we assess everything in 3 places because it's warmer here, a little bit cooler here, except for when the sun shines, and then it's coolest here in the wintertime, but not in the summer.
Yeah, because it's close to the window.
Yeah, so we always assess everything, we think of it in thirds. So there you're looking for the clean break, but we're also looking for the whey loss. What does that whey look like? Is that a bit soft?
It's not as soft as it has been.
Oh, okay. It is soft, isn't it?
How should it be?
So it's a really lovely set, but it should feel, when you put your hand into it, it should have more give to it somehow. So it's completely even. I can't feel any ridges or anything. And that really is pretty good. But you can see down here, it's coming apart a bit. And so it's really not as firm as we would want.
There's those little rigged edges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then when you look at that, it's expelling that whey really quickly.
Are you going to make adjustments later because of this texture now?
So what his options are that he can cut a little bit bigger if he wants to, and then have a much more gentle stirring time. He can do things that will firm up the curd. The most important thing is that the curd is set so that it can lose the moisture freely. So the difficulty with having it soft like this is rather than cutting it, you graze it or you bruise it, and then your moisture can't come out as neatly, and then you get wet, like soggy, pappy cheeses. So we used to have automatic knives. We had a circular vat, and we just couldn't control the cut in the same way. So for me, cheese making is very much about control. And you can say psychologically about that anything you want, but if you don't have control of your material, you don't have control of your outcome. And automation doesn't really provide very much control. From when I started here 5 years ago, we moved from quite a lot of automation, and now to where the only automated thing that we have is the mill. And it's really because that way we can constantly keep an eye on it. Doing everything by hand, I feel like we have managed to really elevate the quality of our cheese and particularly elevate the consistency. So the game now is losing moisture through stirring, through heat. Within the next 10 minutes, he's going to add some heat to it, and then also through acidification. So this curd now, you'll see, is quite big, and when it's going to be time for the whey to come off of it, it'll be much firmer. You won't have any of that sort of squidginess in it. It'll be firmer, and it will be smaller. And he's going to try to get it down to about a hydrated chickpea size.
Andrew and Pam will keep stirring for 40 minutes up to 1 hour, until the curd is firm and doesn't clump together like Jennifer is demonstrating here. Once the curd settles at the bottom and the whey is drained, all that is left are these huge blocks of curd, 32 to be exact, 16 on each side.
You're waiting for the moisture to lose as much as it can do in that position. But you can just see how much moisture is starting to come that way.
But it's not one block, one cheese.
No, it's about 4 blocks, 1 cheese, I think. But it depends on the day, because we don't always have the same volume of milk. But we always do 16 on a side.
After some rest, Andrew and Louis will keep stacking the blocks one on top of the other until only 1 tower remains.
Woo. It's quite a long throw.
It's actually super fun.
Yeah.
It pays off if you did a bit of rugby in your lifetime.
Yeah.
This process is called cheddaring, and it is what gives cheddar cheese its texture.
The general conception is that the texture looks like chicken breast, but actually for us, we are looking for almost like a foliation like you find in croissant dough.
Yeah, like a lamination.
Lamination, exactly. Just right there. You can watch on Lewis's side the way it's just almost like molasses. The way it goes down. It's really quite remarkable.
I'm getting deja vus of seeing my parents folding the bed sheets. You know? Yeah.
So we really want to have these channels. It's almost like forming a capillary structure that allows the whey to leave when the salt penetrates.
Yeah, it does look like croissant dough.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, cheese lamination.
Although cheddaring is tiring and long, the job is not done yet. After this process, the stacked curd will be milled, salted in 3 stages with a 20-minute wait between each, and finally put into molds.
And it really is a ridiculous amount of work.
Yeah, so much.
It's interesting that it was made into such a prominent factory cheese, honestly. It is really inefficient in lots of ways, but it makes amazing cheese.
Today, Jennifer's team has filled 22 molds.
It's really bouncy still. Those will all, once it gets pressed in that press, those will all squish together, but there will still be a micro volume of space for the moisture to go through.
Yeah. That's why sometimes you can get blue veins. That's where they get in.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
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 So that's why for me, I feel like that's sort of the cost of the way we produce our cheese. And when that blue vein comes in, I'm really not going to worry about it. The rest of the world can worry, but I don't. Because I think if we didn't have the occasional blue vein in that way, it would mean we're not structuring our curd quite the right way.
So cheddar can be a blue cheese when it wants to be.
Well, it can have
when
bluing
it
in
it.
it.
Yeah.
Cheddaring was one of the first things to disappear when cheddar moved to factory floors. Texture didn't matter much, these blocks were mostly made for melting, but squeezing cheddar into a 9-to-5 schedule came with a bigger, unexpected trade-off. It lost its original flavor. To understand what happens when speed takes over, I spoke with Brown and Percival, author of Reinventing the Wheel.
When these cheeses were being made, they were made by the women within families, and those cheese-making duties were woven into the entire day. Unfortunately, long makes that can't be rushed don't really lend themselves very well to factory production methods, where you're paying people to come in and work a shift, maybe making cheddar in 3.5 hours rather than in 7 hours. What you end up with is a much more sharp and sort of flat lemony flavor. Cheeses that were once sort of mellow and savory have become more and more acidic as that make was sped up.
That's reflected in the way cheddar is labeled today. Sharp, extra sharp, tangy.
What might have been considered a fault gets recast as an attribute. Looking at factory cheddar, when I was growing up in the United States, the best cheeses were the extra sharp cheddars, the extra acidic, which are entirely an artifact of industrialization and that kind of quickening of the make.
And no wonder there is no space for cheddar with the occasional blue vein. How do you put that on a label?
When that blue is really blue and it's got a beautiful vein, it's smoky, it's got a really deep flavor, and it's unlike any other blue you're ever going to have because it's from whatever is in this environment and on that cheese. It's not from a starter culture. A lot of people see that as a fault, but for us, it's just a happy occurrence, and it's not always in every cheese at all. You know, it might be one cheese in a batch. When it's there, it's quite yummy.
So, was cheddar just too slow and expensive to survive? Maybe. But there is another story we're all being told, that wartime rationing in the UK killed it, the so-called government cheddar. But if you really want to dig deeper, the real culprit is tea.
It wasn't like a switch was thrown in the UK that caused industrialization to take over and everybody ran to stop making cheddar because it was all going to be made in the factories. Instead, I think the thing that really led to the decline of all of these farmhouse cheddar makers, because there were hundreds of them even early in the 20th century, was the market for liquid milk. The UK is a tea-drinking society, and the demand for liquid milk, particularly in cities, was quite difficult to meet. But when train travel started to really become widespread, people could put churns of fresh milk on the train and have them in the city. And under those circumstances, why would anybody spend all day long making a cheddar that might or might not turn out, that would take months to mature, where they would have to wait for their cash to come back to them in a different way, when they could get that cash immediately by selling just liquid milk? Farmers were making logical decisions even before the wars, and that the British farmhouse cheese industry had really begun to fall apart before any world war had a part to play in that.
These stories, industrialization, rationing, ultimately really destroyed the reputation of what modern cheddar can be. When British cheesemaking had a comeback in the 1980s, cheddar was compromised so badly that cheesemakers were put off by reviving it. Instead, many turned to French and Italian-style cheeses, seen as the only flavor profiles worth recreating.
Our cheddar is still quite acidic. We like those more tangy, lactic flavors, which some people now are like, well, yeah, that's not really a cheddar thing. But we like it, and that also works really well for our milk, the more ultra-processed food you eat. I think we are really, in modern society, losing our capacity to taste gentle flavors, slightly perfumed. It's all big, because we're kind of assaulted with a lot of flavor, and a lot of flavor that's not that nice. This represents about a year's production, right here.
The cheeses arrive here on their second day of life, after being covered in lard.
So those were the cheeses that I made 2 days ago. And you can see they're covered in the lard, and then they get the label put on them. And at this point, for the first sort of 6 weeks, they get turned twice a week. Not just turned, but also rubbed down with hand, making sure that that lard gets smoothed all the way around so that it dries out evenly. Yeah, you can see how soft that is. Ooh. Yeah, and honestly, you get it everywhere. So the lard stops the cheese from losing moisture too quickly. You want it to lose moisture, and we in particular want it to breathe. But you can see here, this one probably needed a bit more lard early on because it's got a slight fissure in it. So this is January 2025. So these are quite young. They're only 5 months. You can actually feel there's a little bit of the lard still on there. Yeah. So that will continue to get rubbed, and then that will smooth out.
Notice anything missing? Hafod Cheddar doesn't age in a cloth. Some theories suggest that cloth binding was used to better mature the cheese, others that it helped with transport. What is sure is that for decades, cloth binding has been associated with artisanal cheddar. Until, of course, factory-made cheddar started to be cloth-bound too.
By the 1870s and 1880s, there was a lot of American cheese coming to the UK and being sold on the British market, and it was a lot cheaper than the domestic British cheeses. The British farmhouse cheddars didn't have a cloth on their rind. The American factory cheddars were sold with their cloth on.
And cheesemakers like Jennifer began to wonder if it was even necessary.
I don't know if you can see, yeah, there'll be a little wet patch here. If this is covered in cloth, that gets worse. Whereas if it's allowed to just breathe and release it, it's not a big problem for us. We don't mind that. It is taken as truth that cloth binding is traditional. But what is traditional really? It's about learning. It's about developing and keeping a range of strategies that allow us to make really good cheese, not to recreate something that they might have eaten in, 1640. So these are about a month old, actually, just a bit. And you can just see that progression of rind formation. And then over time, the lard kind of just totally dissipates.
It's like a painting. So it's not, the lard is not attracting the molds. It's, is there any correlation between the two?
Yeah, the acidity, the saltiness, the moisture in the lard, 4 things come together to attract different molds at different times.
Hafod Cheddar is typically sold at around 10 months, but Jennifer says it reaches deeper, more complex flavors at 14 to 15 months.
This is when it starts to get really interesting. The teenage years, it's kind of like, okay, they're really rough around the edges, but you know that they are fundamentally the character that they're gonna be. So it's like you'll smooth that. It's just getting that edge off the rind, and you can start to see, what kind of cheese are you gonna be? And I love it.
So can you still feel the lard there?
Yeah, you can, yeah. But it's starting to really go away. So it's more and more, you see that little bit of lard right there, right? But the molds are really taking hold. The thickness of it, as you rub it in, then creates a lovely breathable space, yeah.
The cheeses are turned twice a week when young, then once a week, and eventually just once a month as they mature.
So how much do they weigh now?
So probably around 10 kilos, and they're quite firm. You can hear that firmness in them. These ones will get once a month. And what we do is we try to move it so that we're they stay here where they come in the storeroom, they stay for their entire life. So these guys were put in here on the 7th of February, and they will stay on these shelves until they are moved out for sale. So because that's very constant, you can feel it's colder here and drier here than in the back. So what we do is we are constantly altering. We're moving the front one, rubbing him down. And then the front one goes to the back, where it's closer, more humid, a little bit warmer. And then the back one, he'll move to the front. And the other thing that we're doing is we're shifting them along a bit so that they aren't always in the same place on the shelf. Because they're here for 10 months, sometimes longer. It's amazing how differential. And that's the thing, like those big factories really, they have these amazing environmental systems where absolutely everything is the same. We don't have that. So we accommodate it to give every cheese in a batch roughly a similar life by moving them about.
Yeah, ooh. It's like you made a barbecue.
Yeah. But every batch has different coloring. It's interesting, like you can see this January, had a lot of sort of rust color on it, and it's slowly losing it.
Why is that?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know that anyone ever set out to make Hafod the way it is. It's just developed over time to find its own voice. We don't have to worry about changing something that other people are like, oh, that's not Hafod, because actually Hafod is about change. It's about adaptation.
There's no traditional Hafod.
No.
No.
And as the environment changes and as the milk changes, it's quite freeing, actually. That's sort of the hallmark of Hafod, is that it is adaptable. We have here the 14th of July cheese. This is quite a dry make, actually. Again, Andrew, who is making the cheese today, made this batch. Let's just have a look. You can see that texture, so very layered.
Yeah. You almost think it's cracks, but then you see they're continuous.
So we allow the salt quite a long time to rest before we put it into the mold, and it creates like a brine around the individual curd pieces, which then gets reflected later in those layers of curd as it matures. But it's still got that rich golden color, which I think is classic Hafod from all of the butterfat that we have, that we keep, that we adore. It's amazing how much easier it cuts as it's warm.
Ooh,
there we
now,
go.
Look at that beauty.
Hidden in the depths of that cheese.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure how well that tastes. It looks like it might be a little bit
It's not
brown.
even blue.
I guess too, the thing with mass-produced cheese is that they are all monochrome. There's no difference in them. There's no fault, like obvious fault. We have differences in every batch, and some batches have blue, some batches don't, and that's just the nature of it. But people lose the capacity to accept that. They think that all cheddar cheese should be relatively white and of a certain texture, and that's just not actually the way it should be if it's made by hand and if it's made with varying milk.
It's really like those molds that we smell back in the storeroom as well. Yeah, the same, like fresh sort of mushroomy, like vegetable. Yeah.
But it's not, and it's so unique. It's not a flavor that you get from a starter culture that you put in, that you add, you know, when you make a blue cheese. Do you want some cheese?
Yes, please.
Have that bit with the
Ooh,
rind on it.
nice. I think you're the most generous cheesemaker I've ever met. They've never given me such a big piece of cheese. So you can see those layers as you snap it.
Yep.
And it has like a very lingering.
Yeah, generous, you know, it just keeps on giving.
And like the second bite is almost fresher than the first, because you have already, like it has already coated your palate with the nuttiness and the warmth, and so you enjoy that even more.
I love the notion of our cheese being warm flavor. I love a warm flavor in a cheese, because that has quite a bit of acidity in the back that makes it feel quite fresh.
Yeah, like the more you have, the fresher it is.
I mean, in the UK, cheddar is a real, farmhouse cheddar is a really dynamic market. There are a lot of us, and we all produce very different cheese. And actually, one of my favorite cheese boards, if I have people over, one of my favorite things is just to have a cheese board that is all cheddar, because you can have the whole range of flavor in the whole range of styles, because everybody does it a little bit differently, or a lot differently.
This is a relatively new cheddar. It's been on such a learning journey, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, even in the, in the last 5 years. I mean, it's been on an extraordinary journey, and I think that, resilience, diversity, those are all timeless and much needed qualities in cheese, in life, in the world.
Yeah. If you could give your cheese any other name that was not cheddar, how would you call it?
Oh,
just Hafod. Yeah. Hafod farm cheese. It really reflects the farm.
yeah.
So what does cheddar mean today? Well, to me, this is what it means. It means really getting to know the makers, getting to know the product, learning that flavors can change and they should change, that something that tastes always the same is not a reflection of nature and actually the artisanal work of the people that understand the nature. And I think that's a very nuanced and subtle lesson that takes time to understand. And not to worry, a cheddar can take 1 year, even more to age. So we do have time to learn and appreciate slowly this process. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this deep dive into cheddar. It's time to go taste some now.